Welcome to Speaking Highly with Jon Huck. I am your host, Jon Huck. With me, as always, is Indy Fawcett. If you like what we do, if you dig it, you can go to speakinghighly.com, get all the Speaking Highly info you need. You can go to the YouTube page, click like, maybe leave a comment, and all across all the podcast platforms, you can rate, review, and tell us what you like and what you would like to see changed, if there's anything. I mean, I'm up for constructive criticism. Just don't be a dick.
You have creative control out there, audience.
Yeah, well, you're entitled to your opinions, I think is how we'll say it. You know, I'm not going to bend over backwards for everybody who doesn't like my face or whatever it is. But how you doing, man?
Doing well. Good to see you, John. Yeah.
Good to see you.
It's not like we've been doing this all day.
I know we did like 400 in a day. It's like, enough, dude. We get it, what we look like. Today we are talking about the movie Respect, which comes out this weekend. And we're talking to Myk Watford, who he's an actor. He's a great actor. He was in The Kitchen. We've had him. He was on the Hollywood Anonymous podcast. It's the new Aretha Franklin biopic with Jennifer Hudson. Marlon Wayans is in it. Forrest Whitaker, Marc Maron, Tate Donovan. It's a huge movie about an even more like larger than life personality and talent. You know, Aretha Franklin is. Find someone who doesn't like Aretha Franklin and then push that person off a cliff. I don't know. Like, there's no way to like not like her and not not to be clever, but you have to respect her career, where she came from, how she did it, what she did, the music she made. And this Rick Hall, the character that Myk plays, was a huge producer at that time, like one of those kind of, I don't want to say nutty, but like really good, like, and I don't like to say Phil Spector because he turned out to be a psycho, but like driven, I think is the best way to say it.
And an incredible mustache. If you look him up online. Yeah. His
sweet mustache, and they make Myk look, they did a real good job. He talks about his wig a little bit, but yeah. I mean, this is just a guy who's he's super down to earth. He's a really nice dude. I met him through a mutual friend, Carl Hansen, who will be on this show eventually, and is one of the more inspirational figures that I've met in terms of just his level of positivity and who he is and who he can be. This is Carl. But like, so when he's like, hey, you should talk to my friend Myk, it's kind of a no-brainer. If Carl's going to, promote somebody or say, hey, this guy's great, you just got to, yeah, let's talk to him.
Of course.
And he's just Myk is just such a unique character. He grew up in the same town as Rick Hall. He grew up hearing all about these stories. He knows this music inside and out. It's what he was raised on. It's in his blood, So for him to get this part, and I mean, he talks all about it. I'll let him do the talking. But again, go see Respect. Check it out. Go buy an Aretha Franklin record. And check that out too if you have never listened to her. I can't imagine there's anybody here who's like, Aretha Franklin, what? Yeah, but enjoy Myk Watford, everybody. All right, everybody, here I am with Myk Watford from the new movie coming out probably this weekend, because this will come out right around the same time as the movie. Respect, a movie about Aretha Franklin. And how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, John. Nice to see you again, man.
Nice to see you. Yeah, for anybody who doesn't know, we had Myk on the Hollywood Anonymous podcast. He was connected to us by a very good friend, Carl Hansen. And that was that's one of those things, man, where like, and of course, because it came from Carl, but like, we didn't know you, me and Brian didn't know you. And that can be a little bit awkward sometimes, just because we'd been doing the podcast kind of strictly with people we liked, so right. It was like, but again, when someone like Carl tells you, hey, you should really talk to Myk, it's like, yeah, whatever you want, Carl, I will, and it turned out, I mean, that was we were talking about The Kitchen, which was coming out at that time.
Right.
That was Tiffany Haddish, Melissa McCarthy, and
Elizabeth Moss,
there we go, thank you.
Yeah.
Did very
and
well.
me.
You had a great little part in there. I mean, I don't mean to say little like
no.
You know what I mean?
I do remember that was a great interview, though. I didn't know you guys. I was down in your basement. For a second, I thought I was getting kidnapped.
That's what everybody, they're like, where are we going?
Yeah. Because you led me around and down. It's like, okay, I had to make sure I had my GPS on. But it was great, man. I think we talked for like an hour before we even started. It was
dude. We used to just we let those podcasts go. I think your episode ended up being like 2.5 hours long or something. Like we just kept it on, you know. But it's great to see you again, and congratulations on. I mean, since the last time I saw you, yes, the kitchen, but also like I know your band was playing. I was trying to get to a show in North Hollywood, but it didn't work out. But I do plan on seeing you guys. Yeah, I do plan on seeing you guys eventually. And I think it's awesome that you are a musician from the South. Yeah. And you get to be in a movie about Aretha Franklin, who kind of, I don't want to say put that music on the map, because that's not a fair, people were doing
what I would say, John? I would say, and this is not too big of a statement, get ready. I would say that area put Aretha Franklin on the map, and I think you'll see that when you see the movie. She had something like 7 or 8 records out before she came down to the Shoals to work, the Muscle Shoals, Alabama, to work with Rick Call, who is the character that I played, and they had her doing sort of standards and no hits. Nobody really knew who she was, and she finally decided she was going to make the music that she wanted to make, and she'd heard what was coming out of there. A lot of people don't know what they were doing down there. I mean, this was in the middle of the woods of Alabama, and this little studio, and they were putting out, they basically invented Southern soul there with the musicians that came in, Percy Sledge and, Clarence Carter and, so many people that really founded that sound, started and worked and did most of their recording down there. And so word started getting out, and Aretha heard about it, and they came way down there, drove through the cotton fields, and it kind of had their mind blown when they walked in the studio, but turned out to be good for everybody.
Yeah, because like you said, if she's coming from, where did she come? Was she up in New York? Was she
up in New York?
Yeah. So she's like in a recording studio. She's making records. She's doing and walking out into a city, and there's people and whatever. Whereas to do what you said, it's like if you thought you were getting murdered, coming to a basement in Eagle Rock for a podcast, imagine her like kind of looking around like, wait a minute, where are we going? And it's just getting more trees, more woods, more trees. And then you show up at, and what's the recording studio called? Is it called Muscle Shoals?
Fame Recording Studios.
Fame Recording Studios.
Stands for Florence, Alabama Musical Enterprises. And it started in Florence and then moved to Muscle Shoals. And they were some of the first people, not the first people recording down there in the Muscle Shoals area, but the first that really broke through. And, to a lot of people's surprise, Wilson Pickett was one of the first to sort of kind of let everybody know what a shock it was for a black soul artist to come down there and work, because, they picked him up at the airport and he drove through the cotton fields, and he had no idea what was happening. And he walks into this studio and he's expecting, with the music that they've been recording there, he was expecting black musicians, and it was all these white country boys. And they were guys that loved that music. They loved soul music. They didn't want to play country. They didn't want to do the things that those guys around there were doing. And they sold out on that. And it was, a surprise to a lot of people throughout the years when they walked into that studio, including years later. Paul Simon famously said, I want to work with the same black musicians that Aretha Franklin recorded with. And they said, well, we
got some news for you, Paul.
We're all here. And I mean, it happened over and over and over again. And that's kind of part of the story. Because they were surprised when they walked in.
Look, that's a huge compliment, in my opinion. You know what Absolutely. I mean? Like you're a recording artist back then. I mean, this isn't to like make fun of white people, but the music that white people like made in the 30s and 40s and 50s, and it's a little bit like it's not. There's no soul to it. There's no soul. It bubblegum. It's very whatever you want to call it, but it's just it doesn't hit you. It doesn't. You don't feel anything from that music. You know. So they, as musicians who, you know, and singers and artists that make music that brings feeling to people, I'm sure they weren't expecting, hey, my name's, you know, Bob, my name's Steve. Like it was, they were like, what? But that's wild, man. That's great.
No, it was. And it was like I said, it was some musicians that came down there to record handled it in different ways. And some musicians were, you know, surprised and ended up being, you know, kind of endeared by those people, and some really didn't like it, to be honest with you. And I
was going to say
the story about about when they recorded there was a mix. There were tensions about that, and you know, it was something that they certainly had to deal with very famously. If you're from the shows, you already know the story. But, you know, they very famously had some tension recording that because of that.
Yeah, interesting. And I, you know, I am all for, like, we should all get along and let's all, you know, everybody is equal. Let's not, you know, you don't know what this person's been through. You don't know what that person's been through. But, you know, I think about it a lot. If I was a black artist, a recording artist, a guitar player, a singer, whatever, I don't know that I'd want, at that time, back then, I don't know that I'd want to work with any white people. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just, knowing what you know, where your parents came from, everything that happened and that was still going on back then.
Yeah.
It's just like,
and it was going on there.
Yeah, I mean, you're in Alabama, dude.
More than anywhere else in the world. And that's exactly how, you know, Aretha's husband felt about it. I think Aretha was much more trusting, as you'll see in the movie, but her husband was not. I was not pleased with that, and also so it created tension.
And her husband was looking out for her. I mean, it wasn't like a you know, I don't like white. It was like, hey man, this is my wife, and I don't want her recording with these people. Like, you know, I get it.
And like I said, there was no way that he could walk in there knowing that these white boys who sound 10 times more hillbilly than I am talking right now could play soul music as good or better than anyone else in the world. There was no way that they could expect that.
No.
And you know, the world found out later, over and over and over again, that they were some of the best in the world. And I think that some of them were the best in the world. Roger Hawkins, their drummer, who just sadly just passed away a few weeks ago, was, I think, as far as that genre goes, the soul music, he was the best studio drummer that ever lived. You know, you've got different people that are more famous live, Funky Drummer and, you know, and James Brown's guy and things like that who people probably knew better. But in terms of laying it down in the studio, nobody made a pocket the way that Roger Hawkins did. And, you know, you're talking about Mustang Sally and Land of a Thousand Dances and When a Man Loves a Woman. He did all of that stuff. All of these guys did. So, you know, it was the road was paved with those guys, you know?
Yeah, that's and timeless music. Like, you can listen to Mustang Sally today and, you know, and get into it. It's not like
you've never heard of any cover band. You have listened to Mustang Sally.
Yeah, that's the thing.
It's like the third song they play.
If you've been to a wedding, if you've been to a, you know, you've heard it. And again, there's a reason that it gets played everywhere. It's fucking good.
It's great. And they always play it too fast. He tells you in the song, slow the Mustang down. But all those cover bands, they want to speed that song up.
They're just trying to get people on the dance floor.
The genius of that Southern soul music is they could find the pocket. They weren't afraid to wait for it. You know what I mean?
I feel, when you say pocket, I feel like I had a friend in college who she would always we'd be listening to something, and she liked punk rock, so we'd be listening to some punk rock, and then she'd be like, oh, here's the mosh part, and it would be like a kind of a breakdown in the song, and then we were listening to something a little bit slower, and she's like, here's the mosh part, and like she just picked parts that like sort of kicked ass, and she was like, this is, and it's not like she was expecting to go into a mosh pit, but she was like, this is the part that like my brain likes, you know. So I always figure like, because when you say pocket, you mean just like kind of like a great little area of like
the groove,
space
the
to
way
like,
the groove is flowing, you know. And you see when you got a great bass player and a great drummer that know how to create that, and David Hood, who I've had the pleasure to get to know over the years for this project and before, and David and Roger, they were one, man. They were one. They're like a world-class quarterback and receiver. You know, they're like Joe Montana and Jerry Rice. They knew every step. They knew every move that each other was going to make, and they're like locked in.
Like a crazy old married couple who knows everything about the other one, because,
you know, I got to tell you, they were, and David was with Roger when he passed a couple of weeks ago in his last moments, and his wife had told me that in some of Roger's last moments with David, he asked him to go get the snare that he used to record Land of a Thousand Dances and When a Man Loves a Woman, and he put it on his chest and beat out the rhythm to Land of a Thousand Dances. And it was the last sort of moment that those two shared together, because that's where they lived. You know what I mean?
Oh my God. And, that's,
I got chills just thinking about it right now. And I've already told that story like 2 or 3 times. So
my eyes just started watering because I was like, wait, whoa, that's also one of those things. I'm a big believer that, you know, as human beings, we're all energy. And when we're done with the body, it's not nothing. It's not the end. It's like, we are timeless. The body, we are infinite beings. We are infinite beings having a finite experience. Do you know what I mean? Like once this experience will end with the body, but like the energy goes on. And I feel like musicians and people like, especially like who we're talking about, like that had such an impact on things like that impact is going to continue. That it's just their energy is going to keep coming back in ways that will drive that stuff forward. You know,
they quite literally really live forever, at least as long as the human experience lives. You know what I mean? That music lives on. And even if someone forgets Mustang Sally in 500 years, the guy who ripped off Mustang Sally and the guy who ripped off that guy and the guy who ripped off that guy and so on and so on and so on, all of that is there. And it all leads back to that and further to the first guy that, you know, tied a string to a stick and went, oh my gosh.
Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's where the first pocket was created, John.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, that's fantastic, dude. I really like that. Now you are a musician as well.
I am. Yeah. Look, I am a guitar player and a singer. I have so much respect for musicians that I don't dare call myself that. The guys in my band are musicians for sure, but I'm a performer and we got a badass band. I'll tell you that much.
Well, I'm going to say you're a musician because if you are in a band that plays regularly, to me, that means you have to know what you're doing. Like, I play the guitar. I'm not a musician. I play the guitar, you know, every once in a while. But like,
you got one hanging up. I see it there.
Yeah, that's a piece of garbage. That guitar really is terrible. But I have a nice acoustic, and then I have I got to get a better electric. But I've been playing guitar since 4th grade, but again, I'm not in any bands. I like music. I'll listen to a song. I'll try to play it, you know, and it's all to entertain myself and maybe impress my wife every once in a while.
Yeah, man, that's what it's about, right?
Yeah.
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. All the same thing if done properly.
Yes.
I always say sex, drugs, rock and roll equals the same thing if done properly. If done improperly, they all might leave a bad taste in your mouth. I don't know. Yeah,
no, that's a very good, because like you said, you can get addicted to the music. You know what I mean? It's like for me, that's what it is like, when I was younger, the word drugs was just funny, like sex, drugs, rock and roll. But then I realized that I just really am addicted to live music. Like, I enjoy it. I enjoy guitar. I enjoy hearing a rhythm section that's good. I like horns. I like piano. I like music. So, it's
the same way. You got to come to a Stumpwaller show because that's what we're about. I'm just going to tell you, that is literally what we're about. We are about the sort of salvation through the music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where we try to share an honest moment with everybody there. We try to have something genuine. We try to get people, and it's a hard sell in LA to get people's ass moving a little bit because people tend to come out in LA and be like, all right, I don't know. Well, show me something.
Dude, the arms crossed. I mean, even in comedy clubs, you see that, and you're like,
oh, I bet, yeah.
Hey, you understand that your body language is shit, right? Can you not cross your arms and look judgmentally at me as I talk about my last fart or whatever this joke is going to go, But yeah, there is, there is that. Like I'm a big Grateful Dead fan. Dead and Company. I'll see all those shows, and there is a difference when you see a concert somewhere else. I love seeing shows in LA because I don't care about what the audience is doing. I'm going to do what I want to do anyway.
There you go, man.
But you do notice it. Like I went to Tedeschi Trucks. Derek Trucks has a band with Susan Tedeschi, I think. But it's Tedeschi, just the Derek Trucks band, I guess. But
okay.
We went and saw them, and they're groovy, man. It's you want to shake your bones, you want to be up, you want to be. Yeah. Everybody was sitting down, and you could tell the band was like, "What is going on?" Like,
that's why a lot of those bands won't come to LA, man. They won't.
That's what happens.
Want to play here. At first, you can't get paid in LA, and second of all, it's you're playing for a bunch of people who act like they're pissed off that they're there. So, so for all of you guys out there watching this, when you go to a show, especially now, because we all need it now, right?
Now more than ever.
Starving for it.
Yes.
And when you go to a show now, just forget that shit, man. Just let it go. Have a good time. You've earned it, man. It's been a year and a half of this bullshit. Like, get out there and fucking have fun because that's what music is magical, man. It really... nothing can move you like music can move you. If you know the secret, and the secret is only to just let go. That's it. That's all you got to do. Simple as that. You don't have to be able to play. Like you said, you don't have to be able to. I guarantee you, and you, however many chords when you sit there and no one's around, or maybe people are around, I don't know, and you're nailing those chords that you like to play. It feels like you're Jimmy Page for a second. It feels magical. And that's why you still have those guitars and have been playing them since you were, 12 or 13 years old and why you always will,
Yeah, dude, that's exactly right. It does. Because even when I am alone, it feels good. It feels good. Like there was two things I'll just say quickly, but like I'm a huge fan of Roger Waters and Pink Floyd and The Wall. Roger Waters did the Wall tour, which they only did 5 of the original shows in the 80s. And then, so he brings it back, this big production. And I go to a show at the Staples Center. And people behind, like The Wall, that album in particular, changed my life. I was in 8th grade going into freshman year. Somebody's like, hey, you should listen to this. And it drilled a hole in my brain and laid eggs. Do you know what I mean? Like it changed my life. And I was so happy to be there and finally see this concert. I'm like standing up and immediately the people behind me, are you going to stand the whole time? I'm like,
oh God,
are you going to sit the whole time?
Yeah,
what are you even doing here? Like, why did you come? You know how these were expensive tickets. Yeah, and sure. I have to sit down now because some asshole doesn't know what's going on. Like it was very,
only in LA, man. Only in LA.
Yes, only in LA. And then what was the second thing I was going to say? We were talking about playing guitar. Oh, Neil Peart, of Rush, when somebody was like, "Do you get tired of playing Tom Sawyer every night or whatever?" And he's like, "No, because it's really hard to play. So when I play it right, I feel good about it."
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, that's amazing to hear a guy like Neil Peart say that. It's like that guy is so technical and so professional that was like, he still feels good playing music. Like that's the deal. That's why we do it.
Add to that, man, the fact that when he played that song, there was anywhere from 10 to 100,000 people shitting themselves over it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When he goes across the toms, they're shitting themselves because of it. And that is an amazing feeling as a musician. And even in my tiny little experience, there's several songs that we have played every single show. And people that know our band, Stumpwaller, they know those songs and they're waiting for those songs. And I played them 1,000 times. And every time we get to them, it's the same thing, man. It's the same thing. There is not there's no part of me that's like, let's not do it tonight. You know, I don't have the energy tonight. No way.
That gives you energy.
Exactly.
If you're tired and you don't have energy, you do that, you'll be like, whoa, man. Yeah. That's a fat rail right to the brain. It's like, woo!
Yeah, man.
That's awesome, dude. That is awesome. And Stumpwaller, just to be clear, is the name of your band. And we'll put a link up to their website so that if people want to see dates or whatever. But
we're just now starting to get back in the groove. We had a gig last weekend outside, and we've had some offers in LA. We stay mostly in the LA area. Every now and then we venture out and go to like Santa Fe and Albuquerque and do a little trail out there. But we mostly stay here because, I have another career and I can't be tied to being on the road.
Right.
But, it's a matter of timing. The venues in LA have been hurt just like the musicians have. And now we're sort of at a point where we're trying to come together because the venues are saying, look, we're broke and we don't have any money. And the musicians are saying, yeah, well, so are we. So we got to get paid. And it's about kind of, figuring it out because if we come in right now and say, you know what, we'll do pay to play to get this gig, which I will never, ever do. And that only exists, by the way, in LA. It's ridiculous.
Yes, dude. It exists in comedy. It exists in music. And it is shady and shitty.
And don't do it. Anybody out there
don't do it if you're an artist or a performer. Yeah. I agree.
Wait, work your way up, start playing at a club at a bar for the tips, for the bar tab, whatever.
Yeah. There are places you can play and perform that won't do that. And they might seem less, but do those places because that's what creating art is, not paying someone to be on
now
stage.
You've got musicians that are so just jonesed to be on stage because it is like a drug that they just want to get up there, and I know that they're torn right now, and I have been torn too about taking less than I think that I'm worth and what my band is worth. I mean, look, I got a multiple Grammy winning drummer. My guitar player is one of the most sought after guitar players in LA. My bass player is a freaking beast of a bass player. It's like, these guys are good and they're worth what they make. They're worth a lot more than they make in the venues in LA. And there's got to be a little give and take, so we're trying to figure that out right now. And I feel like that'll happen in the next month or so. Things will start getting panned out. And, people are coming to these venues and drinking again now. And
that's where the club will make their money. That's where the bar will make their money. Yeah.
And you don't want to do your first show too soon because if people don't want to come, if they're not ready, if your fans aren't ready, to pack into a venue, you don't want to do that either because that first show is something, when we go back to our regular venues, we know those first shows are going to be special and we want to make sure the time is right. So,
Yeah, no, that's very smart. Very smart. As far as Rick Hall, the character you play in the movie, again, just to be clear, you grew up in real life, like pretty much next to this place.
Where he grew up. It's not an exaggeration to say that we grew up in the same place. Rick Hall was, when I was coming up in the Muscle Shoals area of Alabama, North Alabama, I went to Russellville High School, a little town called Russellville, which is in the Muscle Shoals area. And Rick was the local legend. I mean, he was the Fame Recording Studios was like the only amazing thing that had ever happened to that area. That in the out on Jackson Highway where the musicians later they split from Rick. The original musicians started their own, and then you had two going simultaneously, and that was crazy. That time was insane for that area in terms of the music that was being made there. But yeah, I grew up hearing the stories about Rick, and he had gotten to know some of the guys that played on some of those records through other projects and other times and people that I knew back in Alabama. And, to be able to come back later in life, you talk about a full circle moment. I mean, I don't know if it gets any more full circle.
We've had a couple of guests on the show that really have these. Like we had a guy whose like favorite TV show, he like got him into comedy. He's now the host of that show.
Wow.
Like just a crazy full circle of things that happen, guys going to shows, seeing bands, and then getting to meet those bands and play with those bands later in life. So I love this full circle. Like you grew up hearing about this dude. This dude is like, a legendary producer. He's the guy. He's like a Phil Spector, but he didn't murder anybody. He's like
that we know of.
That we know of, right? I'm sure there's bodies buried in that area.
He tried maybe once or twice, but didn't pull it
not
off.
Successful.
Yeah,
but
he was a hothead. Rick was a hothead, and I'm allowed to say that because I did get to know the guys that worked with him, and I did get to know his widow and his son, pretty well. Linda, his widow, and his son Rodney were very helpful to me when I started working on the road because when you're playing a real person, and I've done it before, there's an obligation to get it right. You can't. I'm not one of those guys. I'm never going to go in and do an impersonation. I'm just not going to do that. Luckily, I kind of look enough like him that I was able to just pull that off naturally.
And they sort of grade you up and made you, right? They
put a tremendous wig on me, John. Yeah. It was fabulous. I tried to steal it, but I couldn't get it. But I did a lot of talking with them, and they were very honest. Everybody that his family and the musicians that I talked to were very honest about a couple things. The first thing they'll tell you is that he was a hard ass and a perfectionist, and he'd piss you off because he'd work you to death. And it wasn't just the musicians. Even Linda and Rodney said, it happened at home too. He was. We knew what that was like. We knew what the man was like too. They even said that. I think in his memorial, they talked about that. So there's a great story. I talked to David Hood quite a bit. He was the bass player, and I also played horn. And when oddly enough, everyone knows David as the bass player, but on the Aretha stuff, he played trombone, which is kind of crazy and shows you what kind of musician he was. But David said that he never got a day off, and finally it was his anniversary, him and his wife's anniversary, and he finally begged Rick for a day off. And they went, and he took his wife to a movie. And in the movie theater, Rick sent somebody and grabbed David out of the movie theater and said, "Get your ass in the studio. We're recording right now." He's like, "It's my fucking anniversary, man. Give me a day." But Rick, when the wheels were turning, Rick didn't stop. And they'll all tell you those stories, but they'll immediately follow it up by saying, if it weren't for Rick Hall, I wouldn't have been the musician that I was. If it wasn't for him driving at me the way he drove at me, he refused to let that fail. He refused to create anything less than the genius that happened down there. And, and once I think, once a man decides that he's going to do it and he really decides, it's just a matter of getting done at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the moment that it really happens. And I think Rick decided early on, because he grew up poor, and he had a chip on his shoulder about that. He felt like he had something to prove. He grew up in a dirt floor house with nothing. And he felt like his whole life that he had to prove something to people. And And not just from where he started with where he grew up, but then later it's because of the type of music he was playing, like we talked about earlier. People come in and thought, there's no way you guys can play this music. And he had to prove himself over and over. And you know what? He did. He did it every single time. You look at his catalog, and it to the people that don't know Muscle Shoals music, you know, just look at the things that Rick Hall produced and wrote, and prepare to get your mind blown. It's amazing.
Because you've definitely heard it.
You've definitely heard it a lot of times.
Yeah. It's not like you're like, oh, that's familiar.
I grew up hearing all of that and hearing the stories about Rick, and later to get to play the role was just, I don't know if I can even put it into words, to be honest with you. We said full circle, but it's more than that. It's a life thing for me. And I know that it meant a lot to Linda and Rodney and his family and the rest of the guys that recorded with him, that it was a hometown boy that ended up getting to play him. They were concerned, I think, that they were going to find, you know, some Hollywood guy, you know, that didn't know anything about down there. And, you know, who knows how they would have portrayed him. And it'd be easy to make, if you chose to, you could make him into a GOAT very, very easily. And they felt comfortable with me. And that was one of the biggest honors. I was actually able to with the generous help of the producers, to get them into the studio when we were recording it, when we were filming it. We rebuilt the Muscle Shoals studio as it was when Aretha recorded. I mean, down to the last nail, down to the T. And they got to come in, and when we were doing that, and it was a special moment to sit there with Linda and Rodney and with David and Spooner Oldham, who I don't know if you know who Spooner is, but Spooner is one of the greatest session piano players ever in the history of music, of recording. And love the guy. He's an amazing person. And those guys were just sort of really taking it. You watch him walk on set, and you just see the years coming back.
Yeah, dude.
See it all flooding in. And Spooner sat down at the piano next to Jennifer. And I can't believe this is the first time I've mentioned her name.
We're definitely going to get to Jennifer Hudson playing Aretha Franklin. Yeah.
Yeah. But they sat down together, and I started to record it. And then I thought, I just want to sit here and take this in. You know what I mean? I just want to sit here and listen and see this and know how special of a thing that I get to be a part of. Right.
That's a moment for you. I mean, that is like, I'm doing that more and more. Like, oh, I should take a picture of this, or I should I'm like, nope, this is for me and the people I'm with right now. And that's it. That's it.
Some stuff is just too much. And it never would have been anything in the picture anyway. The moment, it's like a picture of the Grand Canyon.
Yes,
you know,
dude.
You can look at a picture of the Grand Canyon and go, well, that looks like, that's pretty.
That's neat.
But that's nothing.
But go stand on the edge of it and be like, holy shit, this is huge.
It's different. It's a different thing. And so I kept that. And, you know, the another great thing about that movie is that, you know, I knew Liesl Tommy, the director, and I knew Tracy Scott Wilson, the writer. We had worked together years before at the Public Theater in New York. And I actually knew Liesl even before that. She used to be in casting. And then she knew she was going to be a director, but she had been given a very sage advice to start, if she was going to be a director, start in casting, because casting is 90% of the job. And man, is she good at that. I can tell you, she knows who to put in a role. And in respect, she got every single one of them right. I mean, just knocked it out of the park. But I knew Liesl very well. I knew Tracy very well. We worked on a play called The Good Negro at the Public Theater. Anthony Mackie was in that with me, and we sort of played these. It was loosely based on Martin Luther King, and he played the part of King, and I played the part of whatever the opposite of Martin Luther King is in the South.
Earl Ray.
James Earl Ray. Yeah, and it was very beautifully sort of orchestrated, this play. Tracy is a genius, and I love her. I really, really love her, and still very good friends. We stayed friends during this whole time. I knew that when I found out Liesl got the job of directing Respect, I obviously knew that Rick was going to be part of that story. And I was torn, man. And you may have experienced things like this before, where you know people, you've been around for a while, and you know people, and sometimes you go, should I try to pull that card? Should I try to play that friend card there? And I didn't know, and I let time go by. And finally, I just said, you know what? Damn it. I'm just going to reach out to Liesl. And I did. And I said, Liesl, I am the only person who should ever play this role. And I think you know that, because you know me and you know I came from there. I know that man. I know that story. And you're never going to find anybody who can play this role like I am. I was born to play him. And I almost vomited when I was saying that, because I felt like, she was a dear friend of mine. And last thing I wanted her to say was something like, how dare you try to, use
our friendship so that you can get into a movie. Yeah,
exactly.
But also, if she knows you, that's more than that. I mean, there are movies being made every day. You're not doing that for every movie. You're not like,
I've never done it before in my life, and I can't
because this meant something.
Yes, it did. It did mean something, and I'll never forget her response was, "My friend, we wrote it for you," and like,
dude,
I'm just like, my eyes watered up, and I was just like,
oh man.
I still had to prove myself to MGM though. Don't get it wrong.
No, because those guys, but they don't know you. But she did. And
you know what? I didn't find this out until the first table read. But she didn't tell them that she knew me. She didn't tell them she knew me. She didn't tell them that I'm from Muscle Shoals. She didn't tell them any of that shit. I did a self-tape in this room that I'm standing in right now. They made me record every scene. Just about every scene he had in the movie, man. They made me jump through all the hoops. And man, it was one of those times where I just sat down and decided I'm going to do this. This is, I had already put it out there that there was no one who should play the part but me. And I put it on myself to prove it. And
that is awesome.
Luckily, she passed it right on to the producers and the studio, and everyone was in agreement. And it didn't come out that we knew each other and that I was from Muscle Shoals until we all sat down at the table together in New York to read the script. And that's one of the things I'm most proud of, because Liesl didn't have to go to them and say, hey, here's my friend Myk. And she didn't have to pitch. She gave them my work and said, look at this, look at his work. I believe in this guy. And that was all that she had to do. And that's something that you hope for as an artist, any kind of artist, that your work at some point in a life, it won't always, but there are times when you're so connected to it that your work just speaks for itself and there's nothing else that has to be said. And it was another special moment. This is as I think we've established, for me, a very special project on many fronts because of that.
Yeah. And I love the fact that she didn't use that. You know what I mean? Like, because she knew you were good enough. She knew you were going to nail it. She knew you were going to put in the work. Yep. And like you said, you sat down to like, okay, I got to prove myself. You worked at it, you didn't just go, okay, I can do the accent. I can do that. You did the work, you put it in. And also you do have a huge advantage to already knowing the guy, like meaning like his story, who he is, where he comes from, that area, like that, the mentality that was like going on back then. But as an actor, you said you played real people before, but how great was it to be, and not just because it's this guy, Rick Hall, who is, in your eyes, like, something real special, but like, you then get to meet all these people that legitimately hung out with him and knew him and were his family, and they were able to tell you all about this guy, like all the ins and outs that you didn't get from reading the newspaper or looking online or Googling him or whatever. And how was that as like, was there things that you didn't know you were going to incorporate into the character, and then you were like, holy shit, that's a real
Absolutely. There were a lot of things that I didn't know. And I thought I knew everything because, or most of the important stuff anyway. I had grown up hearing the stories. Several years before, I was down there in Muscle Shoals doing, helping to create a musical with my friend Randy Myler, who he wrote and directed, you know, the Hank Williams Lost Highway and Love Janice and a lot of musical plays, musical bio plays. He's very big at that and very good at it. And we were putting that together. And while I was down there performing it, I learned all those stories again and learned lots of other things that I didn't know. So I had thought that I heard it all, but I heard so much more by talking to them. Some of the things that I've already told you about how specifically, how hard he drove people. But the other side of that they loved him. And that they all admit they would not have a career if it weren't for what he was and the son of a bitch that he could be sometimes. He wouldn't accept anything less than what was perfect. And even though, you know, that's obviously subjective, he knew when the imperfections were perfect. He knew when to let it go. And even if it wasn't what was technically perfect, and let that be something even greater than it was originally meant to be.
He knew where to show
over and over again in recording.
He knew that those things help create emotion, like you know, everything being technical all the time.
Recording is a difficult thing, man. And a lot of modern music, it's so computerized, and there's no soul in it because everything is produced down to the beat, every little thing. And you gotta, it takes a real special kind of person to know when to be relentless about one little beat and when to let something go. Not everybody can do that, man. And really in any art, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point, because there is, like, you know, I think when I was younger, I tended to, like, if something wasn't perfect or it didn't technically, you know, but if you keep doing that, you're never going to finish your screenplay. You're never going to finish the sketch you're writing. You're never going to finish the joke. You're never going to finish the song. It's like, you got it. At a certain point, you have to go, this is it. This is the thing. Here it is, you know, and, you know, and also, like you said, recording in a studio, for musicians, it was, you know, you play live, you're a musician, you're playing, you get an audience, you get feedback, you know, and then to go into a studio and not that it was sterile, but it's just not a live performance. It's not an audience. You're like multiple takes. So you're doing it again. Someone's telling you did it wrong. You know, it's just a different like way to play music almost.
There's almost this academia about it that you have to incorporate and be able to put that in there without losing the soul. I mean, forget losing it. You have to. It has to be infused with what is meant to carry over to the listener every single beat, or it's nothing. And you that's why so many people go into a studio and they think they've got a hit and they overproduce it, and it ends up just being another song or a B-side because they've hammered all the soul out of it, you know. And those guys, interestingly enough, they never cared to play live. They were studio musicians and they knew it. Really? And they did go out with Aretha a few times because she loved them so much and she wanted them there, especially as she started. She understood that they created magic with her. That
they helped make the sound. It's like they made the sound that she sang to.
And really they did. And that's I mean, obviously she was gifted on an unspeakable level. But you know, Spooner is the one that they were trying to pan some of the first songs out, and Spooner is the one that was just sitting there on the piano and just kind of messing around and found it. And everybody turned and said, "Oh, Spooner's got it. Spooner's got it." And then the band joins in and Aretha starts singing, and music history is made. You know what I mean? And this is after lots and lots of frustrations. There are tons of stories like that with Muscle Shoals. Paul Simon came down there to record the Kodachrome album, and he had been to studios all over the world, trying to get that album recorded. And he had recorded his guitar tracks first without a metronome. So it wasn't perfectly in sync, but that's what he wanted. That was the tracks that he wanted. And he was a notorious perfectionist, which is a little strange that he would take a track that wasn't recorded to a metronome and be so tied to it. But nobody could get it. He recorded it in New York. He recorded it in London. Nobody could get it. And finally, he came down to the shows, and Roger Hawkins was the one who figured out what that weird rhythm is that he was trying to have and that he had in his head that he couldn't get out and no other rhythm section could figure out. He hired them for 3 days to do that one song, and they got pissed about it. They took it personal. They said, "You think it takes us 3 days to do one song?" They're like, "Screw you, man, let's go." And they figured out that first song in about, I don't know, a few hours. And then Paul still had 2.5 days left. So he sits down in the studio and starts playing his acoustic, saying, "Well, here's some other songs I got.
Let's record an album."
Yeah. And that is exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. They prided themselves in being able to get it done and figure it out and get it done without overthinking it, and that's why the Stones came down there and guys like that, and Leonard Skinner, and those dudes ended up coming down there later on because that was the approach that they were looking for. They needed a pocket in there. They needed it to be loose. They didn't want to hammer it out and overdo it. They wanted it to be, right on pocket, and
almost feel like a lot. Almost feels like a live performance. Yep. It's like, it's not the rigid studio. It's a very fluid. It's fluid music. It flows. It's great. How was Jennifer Hudson? Obviously, she probably kills it as Aretha. She can sing. We already know that. She can act. We know that. She's been around for. It doesn't feel like that long, but I guess it's like mid-2000s or something like that.
Yeah, it's been a while now. She's been around for a while. I'll tell you, anytime you're working with the number one on a movie and you don't know them and they're a big star and they're, considered a diva, and I'm not saying she considers herself a diva. She's considered that by other people.
Right.
You never know what's going to walk in the room. You really don't. And I've learned, and the hard way, let me tell you, John, I've learned the hard way that you have to treat those number ones a certain way. So I didn't know what to expect. I was just kind of being cordial and not too pushy. And I'll tell you, she was so gracious to me. And she didn't have to be. She had no reason to be gracious to me. Here she was making this epic movie where she had to sing what's impossible to sing. She had to pull off an impossible feat, which she did, by the way.
She sang all that, huh?
She sang all that. And I'm going to tell you, it's nothing against the other people that have played Aretha, but there's no one else that really could have done it. There's no one else that could have done it besides Jen, and that's why Aretha chose her to do it. But she was very gracious and giving, and wanted to make sure that, at least in my experience with her, that I had what I needed, and she was complimentary, and even I felt like sometimes would ask me for advice about what she was doing. And you don't see that a lot with people who are leading a movie the way she is leading this movie. There's number one on the cast list, and then there's
the name of the movie is the name of the main character, and she's playing the main character.
That you don't get more number one than that. And I fell in love with who she was. I got to be honest with you. She didn't have to be that cool. Yeah. And she was just, and she's also a very a humble person. And I feel like she's not one of these people that you get the sense is one of these deviant Hollywood types. She was a very good girl. I mean, she had been raised right, and she knew how to conduct herself, and she knew how to she wasn't out there raising hell. I'm gonna put it that way.
She was getting ready to play Aretha. She's getting sleep,
doing
and
her work,
lines.
and she respected everybody, no pun intended, that was involved in it. And I can't imagine it being anybody else. I mean,
and I can only imagine for her to be able to play Aretha. I mean. Yeah. I assume her parents listened to Aretha Franklin, and she grew up listening to Aretha Franklin. And
there's no way she couldn't have.
It was everywhere. She's everywhere. Yeah. And I feel, if I'm not mistaken, she's from Chicago. Is that? Am I wrong? Yeah. Okay. So she
still lives there, I believe. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So that's a Midwest. Like the being gracious to everybody and being nice and being, I mean, that's a little bit of that Midwest in there. And I'm sure she was raised by parents who were like, hey, please and thank you and that kind of thing. So I do love hearing that. And also just because I'm blanking on like who would that be for me? Like if I got to play, and all I can come up with is Carrot Top. So that's not right. Like, it's like, well, if I got to play Carrot Top, man, I would take that real serious.
Chris Elliott, man, it's Chris Elliott.
Yes, it is Chris Elliott. When I do the Chris Elliott bio, exactly. I will talk to his family and learn everything I need to learn. Who else is like? There's a lot. Like, okay, yeah, I got Marlon Wayans, Forrest Whitaker.
Yeah.
You got to work with Maron. How was that?
Oh yeah, you know him?
I only know him in passing. I've never really.
I don't mean to assume that all comedians know.
No, that's fine. I do. I have a crazy amount of respect for him. I've never been able to tell him this to his face, but his podcast, What the Fuck, it really helped me change my perspective on what comedy is and why I'd want to do it. And
I think he's done that for a lot of people. Yeah,
and I really appreciated it, and I would like to be able to tell him that to his face. I'm done waiting for people to die to go, oh man, I really like that guy's work. I don't care if they get annoyed by me. I'm just going to say, hey, I like what you do, and you helped me. So, but I appreciated that, and he was. How was he? Was he cool?
He was awesome. He was great. I loved hanging out with him. And he is like I've worked with a lot of comedians somehow through the years, and like the great, all the other great comedians that I've worked with, he is that guy. He's not putting shit on. He's that dude, man. And he's that guy. The only time he's not that guy is when he's playing Jerry Wexler in the movie.
Right, when he's playing a character. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he is that dude, and it's refreshing to me to be like, oh man, oh cool. You can just kind of sit down and breathe and be like, you are who you say you are. That's great, man. Not only that, he's fucking smart, really, really smart.
And he knows music, like player. Yeah. He loves music. He's a guitar player, and I do like that. Some of the best like the compliments that I've gotten in like working in Hollywood and whatever are that. After people see me go on and then they hang out with me afterwards, like, oh my God, you're the same guy. And I'm like, yes, what you heard up there was true. The things I said were real. That was me. I'm not, I love acting for the other reason, which is you get into a character and you get to play somebody different and kind of see it from someone else's perspective. But comedy for me has always been about me and the things that have happened to me, and I can't write from a place of I'm Myk Watford and this is my character. I can't do that. I don't know how. So to Mark's credit, he is that guy, and it's for better or for worse
his
sometimes.
Instagram feed it's remarkable. I mean, it's some of it's just like he's not even doing anything, man. It's like a Wim Wenders movie. He's like just walking through the house. And nothing's happening, man. He's just, oh, there's my cat. I got some nuts over here. Oh, look, there's mail. I mean, what? And somehow, holy shit, man, it's incredibly interesting. I don't know. I could never make just me walking through the house, something that, thousands upon thousands of people are dying to see every day.
Right. Yeah. And liking and getting more of it. We're going to get more of it.
Let me tell you, he mentioned me on his podcast right after we worked together, and my phone never blew up so hard, man. I mean, like people, I literally had a friend that said to me, I think I saved the text. He's like, 25 years you've been working in this business, and everything you've ever done has been trumped by Marc Maron just mentioning your name on his podcast. And I was like, well, I'll try to take that as a compliment. I don't know.
Well, here's the deal. Everything you did before that led you to where you are. So it's all important. You know what I mean? Like there's, that's fantastic.
Mark was a great dude though. I really hope I can work with him again because he's the type of dude you just want to like, there wasn't enough time for me to ask all the weird questions that I wanted to ask him about who the hell he is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you know what?
Him and Marlon, who are very different comedians, being those guys is off camera. I mean, I'm in the middle of the two of them, most of my part of the movie. And, I mean, there were times where I was just like, I'm going to stop talking and just grab some
observe. Yeah.
I watch this whole thing happen, them just being each other and naturally without trying. It's a fucking comedy show is happening, man. And they're not even trying to do that.
Yeah.
But it's like it might as well be Marlon on this side in this spotlight and Mark over there in that spotlight for me, because they, as we said, they are who they are and they love being that. It makes them really fucking happy to be funny and to think and question things. And, that was amazing for me.
That's awesome. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Trying to think what else we should. I mean, it's such a great story. Like, again, growing up in the area, you've heard all about this guy, and then you get to meet his family and all the musicians who played with him. And I feel like when those musicians tell you that he was a hard ass, but they wouldn't be who they are without him. Yeah. To me, that's like if you talk to any professional athlete.
Yeah.
Baseball player, football player, hockey player, whatever. Guarantee you there's a parent in there that was like, get on that fucking field, put the glove on, throw the goddamn ball. You're going to be a star. And like the kid was probably miserable for a chunk of that. But then like, and I don't know how to feel about that sometimes. It's like, you got to let kids do what they want to do.
That's not too unlike me with my son. My son's an athlete and I coach. And I was an athlete when I was younger. And when he started becoming an athlete and I got back into it, it was a big deal. It was so awesome for me to be able to go into that world and escape what Hollywood is and be in a situation where it's not about that at all. And but man, I tell you, he has goals. He's only 9 years old, but he's got goals, man. And when he sat down and told me his goals, I said, look, what you're saying some serious shit. I didn't say shit.
Look, you little fucker, you're saying some serious shit.
But, I told him this is serious. And I made a choice that I'm not going to be that dad that says, that's ridiculous, dude. You don't dream of playing in the NFL because only 1 in 5 million people ever get a chance to do that. I said to myself, I'm going to support his dream to do that. And if he makes it, it's going to be because of his talent, plus the fact that I kicked his ass over and over again every damn day to get him out there and do it. But if he doesn't do it, it sure as hell ain't going to be because someone didn't believe in him and someone didn't push him to be the best that he could be. If he doesn't make his dreams that dream, it's not going to be because he didn't try like hell to do it. And as a dad, it's the biggest honor of my life to go out with him almost every day and throw and work and pay a shitload of money for private coaches and things like that. But he's doing what he wants to do. And 2 years from now, he may say, Dad, I feel like chess is more exciting. I mean, who knows? But
right, but who knows? But you're there for the ride with him. You're not telling him. now you got to get out there because you're going to quit football. You've been doing, you're not that dad. You're the dad who's like, dude, if you want to do this, I will work with you and I will help you and I will be there every step of the way for you. But
I've told him that so many times. I've told him, if you decide that you don't want to do this, I'm happy. Don't ever do this for me. I don't want to be that dad. But if you decide that, then we're going to find out whatever else it is. And the last time I said it, he said, I wish you'd stop saying that. I told you this is what I want to do. You know what I mean? And so believe me, this is what I want to do. And I was like,
okay,
good enough, man. I wish I had those balls when I was 9 years old, but unfortunately I didn't.
But I think it worked out okay for you.
I did. I ended up alive and here, and hey, I get to do cool shit, so it's all good.
Yeah, man.
In spite of it all.
I love it, dude. Well, Myk, thank you so much for talking to us. And I mean, this will come out like right around the same time as the movie. I'm looking forward to the movie, and I'm sure everyone else is looking forward to it too. I mean, Aretha Franklin is a iconic, beloved, the queen of soul. Like, you just can't. There aren't words that could explain. I mean, Blues Brothers is one of my favorite movies. It's a friend of mine. Was a little kid. She's in it, dancing on a police car. They blew up the gas station.
A friend of mine was one of those kids too, by the way.
Is your friend Santa Moses?
No, it's not. No.
That's
He's
great.
One of my fraternity buddies, but they probably were hanging out together.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Kids. Yeah.
And then they blew up a gas station in that movie that didn't make the final cut. Like when they're getting the windshield wipers and Twiggy pulls in and Dan Aykroyd's talking to her. They ended up blowing that gas station up as the Blues Brothers drove away. That was like literally, down the street from my house. My dad went and watched them blow up that gas station for the movie. Blues Brothers was the first movie I ever saw in a theater. I was 5 years old. My parents were like, "We're going to see this."
For you, right? Being from Chicago, you're from Chicago, right?
I'm from Illinois. It was a huge deal. It was the hardest watching John Belushi fall down the stairs as the nun was slapping with him. It was the hardest I laughed at that point in my life. And then hearing the F word all the time, I was like, oh my God, this is fucking hilarious. And my parents were laughing and their friends were laughing. And I was like, why am I here? But I loved it. But my thing is, like, there are so many musicians in that movie. Like Ray Charles is in that movie, and that was my first, my dad liked music, but he liked, I don't want, again, not trying to make fun of white people, but my dad liked Dixieland jazz, which is, some very banjo-y white guy music.
My dad liked fusion jazz. So like, that's pretty much just as modern fusion jazz is about as soulless as it can get. But.
Yeah, that's great. That is like, boop, boop, beep, boop, boop, beep, boop, boop.
Yeah.
But seeing Aretha Franklin, that scene, it plays over my head, like just the fact the ordering when 4 whole chickens and a Coke and dry white, and then she goes back there and the guitar player is a terrible actor, is like, but he can rip, and then they do respect. I mean, they do think it was. I mean, dude, it's such an amazing. I mean, that was my intro to her, and from there you're like, oh, this woman is an amazing singer and performer and loved by everyone. I've never heard anyone go, fuck Aretha Franklin. Like, no. I've heard people go, well, of course not. But I've heard people go, I don't listen to it as much as I should, but I've never heard anyone go, nah, Aretha Franklin. I also try not to hang out with people that don't like music. That's one of those things,
if someone said that, you would pretty much know they're an asshole.
That's the thing, as I said, I was going to say, is like, I don't like to hang out with people that don't like music. It's not fun. And also I like people that get nerdy about things. Like, whatever you're into, get into it, man. Like, get into it. Like, find out how it works, figure it out, and keep doing it.
Yeah.
But again, thank you, man, and looking forward to the movie. And do you have anything coming up besides that? I mean, not besides that. Like,
well,
it's nothing,
we're gonna have. I'm just starting the press for it, so I'm gonna be doing a lot of that. And
no, you've done my podcast. That's all the press you need. I think people will find out about the movie this way, and
exactly. Send this out to the world, please, Jon, and then I can just be home for the next.
Yeah, no, we put it on the World Wide Web so everybody can get.
Is that where you put it?
Where we put it?
You are cutting edge, my friend.
It's technology. I don't expect you to understand it, but it is taking over.
and I don't. Hopefully, I'll have some Stumpwaller shows, and look, Stumpwaller.com. I don't really keep Stumpwaller on the social medias. It's on Facebook, I think, but I don't have it on any of the others. I don't know why. I just haven't. We try to keep it a local SoCal thing as for the most part, but hopefully we'll be playing soon. We're still working that out, and then I'm just going to be going around doing these things and telling stories that now they're all going to be dry and glib because I've told them all to you. You're actually the first one. So
boom. I was gonna reach out to you before the publicist hit me up. Like I was literally like, oh man, he's in that movie. I gotta talk to him. And I'm like, he'll remember me, right? I mean, we didn't do Hollywood Anonymous that long ago. It was like,
of course I remember. Yeah,
and I couldn't remember if you were friends with Brian or how we met or if it was a publicist before. And so the Carl thing, I'm like, oh yeah, of course he's gonna remember me. But yeah, man, I really appreciate it. And best of luck doing press.
I'll also be coaching youth flag football if anybody wants to come out and see some 9 and 10-year-olds. I
wouldn't promote it like that.
Okay.
I'm like, hey, I got a bunch of 9 and 10-year-olds. If you guys want to come out, like, nope, I'm a grown man with no children. Probably not a place for me to be. But yeah, that's great, man. Best of luck with coaching, and I hope your kid makes it in the NFL draft at 9 years old. But yeah, man, thank you so much. And again, I look forward to the movie.
All right, Jon. Thanks a lot, man.
Take it easy, Myk.
Take it easy.